What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. Today, I'm doing my way too early 2023 NASCAR Cup Series schedule predictions. Let's go ahead and just jump straight into it. Starting off on February 5th, which will be a week before the Super Bowl, we'll be once again racing in the Los Angeles Coliseum like we did in 2022, and we're going to have the Busch Light Clash once again here at the Los Angeles Coliseum. The event this year in 2022 was absolutely fun. It was a great event overall and put on some really great racing, and he had a party atmosphere around the LA Coliseum as well, and had a great crowd as well with amazing attendance. I think NASCAR saw how successful that was, and I think in 2023 we're going to return here once again with another really jam-packed race. We're then going to have a 1 week break off for the Super Bowl, and then on February 19th, a week after the Super Bowl, we are going to have the Daytona 500 on February 19th, which will be the day before President's Day. The Daytona 500, of course, always kicks off the regular season for NASCAR. Yes, of course, you have the Busch Light Clash before that, but you tend to have the Daytona 500 as the first race of the season in Daytona. It's a great gateway to really awesome racing, and it will be the first regular season race of the 2022 season. Right after Daytona, we're going to be heading out to the West Coast for the West Coast Swing, and on February 26th, we'll be racing at Auto Club Speedway. Now, there have been a lot of questions if Auto Club Speedway will be a 2-mile track or a half-mile track. Well, in 2023, it is going to be a 2-mile track. Basically, people were told this past week that they will not be converting into a half-mile track for 2023, and those plans have been dropped. Now, I do think eventually Auto Club will become a half-mile track, but I think for the time being, especially with how good the race was this year in 2022, I don't think that they're going to change it, and I think Auto Club will be, once again, the second race of the 2023 season. Right after Auto Club on March 5th, we'll be heading out to Las Vegas Motor Speedway for the third race season and the second race of the West Coast Swing. The racing this year at Las Vegas for all three series is absolutely incredible, and Las Vegas also had really strong attendance this year, which is going to help the track out going forward. With how successful the event was, I think we'll be back at Vegas as the third race of the season. Then on March 12th, we're actually going to have a change. Instead of racing at Phoenix International Raceway, I think Phoenix is actually going to lose a day, and I think that we are going to be moving Sonoma from the week after, the second week after the Coke 600, and we're going to move Sonoma into early to middle March. The reason we're moving Sonoma a little earlier is when I've looked at the weather for Sonoma, the weather has absolutely been really, really incredible, and the grass is really, really green. Yes, rain could be a factor, but then, of course, you have rain tires that are absolutely viable for Sonoma. So I think that Sonoma is going to be moved into the technically the fourth race of the season. I think Phoenix is going to lose a day. Right after Sonoma, we're going to be heading back somewhat to the East Coast, to the Southeast, and we're going to be racing at Atlanta Motor Speedway. Now, technically, this weekend when you're watching this, the Atlanta Cup race will be debuting at the new Atlanta Motor Speedway, and also this will be the only time that we're racing Atlanta Motor Speedway in the season. And the reason that I'm saying Atlanta is only going to have one date is because the attendance for both of the events last year was absolutely horrendous. There was not a great attendance, especially for the second race. Yes, the second race was really, really good, but I think that the attendance has been really, really bad, and Atlanta is not able to support two dates. So I think Atlanta is going to be the week after, of course, after Sonoma, but it's only going to be one date in 2023. Right after Atlanta Motor Speedway, we'll be heading back more out to West, and then on March 26th, we'll be racing at Circuit of the Americas. Circuit of the Americas has already had one race. We're going to be racing there in a couple weeks in the Cup Series, but Koto is going to be the second road course race of the season, where we'll see probably a lot of the road course ringers showed up. I think the Koto race being on March 26th makes a ton of sense, because Circuit of Americas the weather is better in late March than it is when it originally was in 2021, where it basically was in the middle of May. I think Coda being on March 26th makes a ton of sense. It'll be right after Atlanta. Right after Circuit of Americas, we're heading to Richmond Raceway on April the 2nd. Now, this is also going to be the only time that Richmond is going to have a date. And the reason is because Richmond's attendance in the races have generally not been very, very high. And I think if you put only one race at Richmond, I think it'll make a lot more sense when it comes to when it comes to attendance. And I think the racing, I'll be honest with you, at Richmond, I think it is my least favorite short track. So I think that Richmond is going to lose a day. Now, that's not saying Richmond sucks, but it is my least favorite short track on the circuit. And I think Richmond's going to lose the day. And I think it's actually going to want to be a day race, unfortunately, as well. But I think it's better in the daytime than it is in the nighttime. Right after Richmond, we're going to have a change to the schedule. Instead of Martinsville being the next race on the schedule, we're going to be racing at Bristol Dirt on April the 9th. Now, the reason we're moving Bristol Dirt a week before Martinsville and not a week after Martinsville is because of the fact that it is going to be Easter. In 2022, the NASCAR Cup Series is going to be racing on Easter Sunday on April the 16th and April 17th, excuse me. And I think that because of the fact they're moving Easter a week earlier, I think Bristol will move a week earlier. And yes, I know there's potential of rain being a much bigger factor than this year's, but I think that Bristol is going to be moved a little bit earlier, and it will happen on April the 9th. Right after Bristol Dirt, on April 15th, we are going to have the Martinsville night race. Now, yes, rain could be a major factor. It was a major factor in 2021, but I think Martinsville, once again, being a night race in the middle of April makes a ton of sense. I think especially how good it feels like an old school kind of race, like an old school football kind of race. I think Martinsville will be on April 15th, and it will be earlier into the season. I think it takes place on April the 15th. I think it makes a ton of sense. Right after Martinsville on April 23rd, we will be heading to Talladega Superspeedway for the second Superspeedway race of the season. Talladega always puts on a really, really good race. Of course, it's going to be a 500-mile race. I think it's always going to put on a really exciting race. You also see a lot more higher car counts at these races, and qualifying is going to matter a ton more. So I think Talladega is going to take place on April 23rd, which will be the week after Martinsville. I think it makes a ton of sense. And then after Talladega on April 30th, we're going to be racing at Dover International Raceway for the only time in the season. Now, this could be one of the last times we are racing at Dover Speedway due to SMI's SMI acquiring Dover and Nashville Superspeedway. I think there's a very strong possibility that Dover is going to lose the day, and also Dover's attendance has been dwindling as well. Yes, the racing seems to be better at the track when you go to the track than when you're basically watching on TV, but I think Dover eventually will end up losing overall altogether their dates. I just think, unfortunately, Dover is eventually going to lose their date because they're now not their own entity. They're now part of SMI. So I think Dover is going to have a date in 2023, but it could be one of the last times that Dover has a tie date on the NASCAR Cup Series schedule. Right after Dover on April 30th, we'll be racing on May 7th at Darlington for the throwback race. This race, of course, will once again be a 400-mile race, and it will be the throwback race. We'll see a lot of the throwback paint schemes. Yes, of course, with the new placement, and it'll be the second year with the new placement, by the way. But I think Darlington will take place on May 7th. I think it makes a ton of sense for that to take place right there, especially since I think Darlington absolutely deserves 2 dates, and I think it'll put on some really good racing on May 7th. Right after Darlington on May 7th, we'll be going back into basically the Midwest, and we'll be racing at Kansas Speedway on May the 14th. Kansas is a very underrated track, in my opinion. Yes, the last couple races have not been the most spectacular, but especially go back in 2019 and 2018 and a couple of the races in 2017 and stuff, I thought the racing at Kansas was actually really, really good. And I think Kansas has a ton of potential to continue building on that, especially how good the intermediate package has been with the next-gen car. Now, it may not be as good, but I think Kansas will put on a pretty decent race as a whole. And this race will start a little bit earlier than it traditionally does. Right after Kansas, on May 21st, we're going to have the All-Star race. However, we're not going back to Texas Motor Speedway. I think Texas Motor Speedway is going to lose their All-Star days. I think that administration of the Eddie Goss administration is probably going to start leaving that group. And I think the All-Star race is actually going to go back to the East Coast. It's going to be in the Charlotte area. I think the Cup Series is going to race the All-Star race at Bowman Gray Stadium. Bowman Gray Stadium is very similar to the LA Coliseum. It is a quarter-mile track. And I think when it comes to having a race, if you want to have Bowman Gray on your schedule, I think having this All-Star race makes a ton of sense. Tons of beating and bang, guys going at it, and probably some short track tempers and short track fights will happen. But I think the All-Star race will get rejuvenated if you have it in Bowman Gray Stadium. No disrespect to Texas Motor Speedway, and we haven't seen the racing with the next-gen car, but I really don't think the racing, I think the racing would be much better if it is at like a track like Bowman Gray Stadium than it is at Texas Motor Speedway. So I think the All-Star race is going to get moved to Bowman Gray Stadium, and I don't think it returns to Texas in 2023. Right after Bowman Gray Stadium for the All-Star race on May 28th is going to be, of course, the traditional Coca-Cola 600. Coca 600 is always NASCAR's longest night, and it's a very big traditional night for NASCAR where we see potentially a ton of attrition. Maybe that'll be fixed in 2023. But I think attrition will be a major, major factor with the next car even in the second year. And of course, Coca-Cola 600 is going to remain on the same weekend. It'll take place on May 20th. Makes a ton of sense. It's NASCAR's longest night. Memorial Day, of course, F1 and IndyCar happening on the same day as well. The Coke 600 will take place on May 28th. Right after the Coca 600 on May 28th, On June the 3rd, we're going to be having the Worldwide Technology Race. Now in 2022, this race is going to be taking place in the day. However, I'm moving it to the nighttime for a couple reasons. I've been living in the St. Louis area my whole life, and I think this race should have already been at night to begin with. It can sometimes be really nice in the summertime, but also here in early June, it can be very, very hot. So I think having this race at night makes a ton more sense for the fans. So I think how it goes, you have the Truck Series race on Thursday. Xfinity, I would bring Xfinity back on Friday, and then you have the Cup Series on Sunday. So I think that that's how it should be for Worldwide Technology Raceway, because of course they have a 3-year contract with NASCAR, and I think Worldwide Technology Raceway will be on June the 3rd. Right after Worldwide Technology Race, we are going to go out to the West Coast. Actually, going to go up to the Northwest. Now, of course, people are thinking, well, we're not going to Sonoma, so why are we going out to the West? Well, we're going to go to Portland Raceway on June the 11th. Now, in 2022, the NASCAR Xfinity Series is going to be racing at Portland Raceway for the first time. And, of course, you have IndyCar also races there. And I think the Xfinity Series is going to put on a good show. And I've been saying this, that the Cup Series needs to get out to that Northwest area. So I think it would make a ton of sense for Portland Raceway to have a Cup Series date on June the 11th of 2023, and I think Portland deserves a Cup Series date. It's never happened, and I think Portland will take place on that date. Right after Portland Raceway, we're going to have a 1-week break due to basically Father's Day. We'll have a 1-week break, which will be the only off week in the Cup Series schedule, one of the only 2 off weeks in the NASCAR Cup Series schedule. And then on June 25th, we'll be racing in National Super Speedway, where NBC is going to begin their portion of the season. National put on some really strong racing in 2021, and I think it actually do that once again in 2022. And in 2023, National, of course, I think will have a really good crowd as well. Now, the biggest thing, of course, is they got to figure out the traffic situation that's happened in National Super Speedway, but I think they'll be able to figure that out. And National Super Speedway will, of course, kick off the NBC portion of the season, and I see National Super Speedway doing really good racing. Right after National Super Speedway on June 25th, we will be racing on July 2nd at Road America for the 4th of July tradition. I think Road America has done a really good job when it comes to being tradition for the 4th of July. The racing last year in 2021 was absolutely incredible, and I'm very excited for the racing in 2022 as well. And I think it'll put on a really good show for the 4th of July. Plus, you had one of the largest crowds we've ever seen in NASCAR history. There was talks that maybe it got 150,000, and signs that maybe it got 250 to 300,000 were at the event. So, of course, Road America will return in 2023, and it will be the 4th of July race once again. Right after Road America, we are going to have a change once again. Because remember, like I talked about Atlanta Motor Speedway. Atlanta Motor Speedway is not suitable for 2 days. And there's been a lot of talk about a potential street course happening in Chicago. And I know there's still potential politics that could play a factor into that. But I think that they're going to be able to sort those issues out. And I think that Chicago Street Course on July 9th is going to happen. And NASCAR will have their first ever street course race. Chicago is a great area to go. Well, Chicago is not the greatest city in the world. But NASCAR has been wanting to get back in the Chicago area after not racing in Chicago for the last couple of years. So I think that Chicago will get a date for the street course race. Again, the racing probably won't be overall the most amazing or most incredible, but I think it's really important to race in a street course race, and I think they will have the Chicago street course race on July the 9th. Right after Chicago Street Course, we're going to be heading more back to the East Coast in the New England area, and we're going to be racing at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. The race in the last couple of years in New Hampshire has become very underrated. However, the attendance is something that definitely needs to be fixed. There's not been the best attendance in the world in New Hampshire. It's been okay, but it has not been fantastic. And if this track is going to continue to be on the schedule long term, they better get these attendance issues and these attendance figures figured out. So I think New Hampshire will, of course, will have a Cup Series day, but I think, unfortunately, they need to start working on figuring out a way to fix this. And then after that, after the New Hampshire race on July 16th, on July 23rd, we're going to be going up to the Pocono Mountains in Pocono Raceway. I know some people want to have 2 dates at Pocono. However, I do not think that they are going to get 2 dates. I'm going to be real with you, Pocono. I'm not overall the biggest fan of Pocono. Yes, I do think the racing last year was really, really good for both races and was very entertaining, especially with it being a fuel mileage race at the end of the day. But I'm not expecting Pocono to put on the greatest show overall in the world. So I think Pocono is only going to have 1 date once again. And I think it's going to be a 350-mile race. I think the race is going to be a little shorter, and I think it's going to be a much shorter race at Pocono Raceway. Right after Pocono, on July 30th, we're going to be racing at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. But instead of racing on the road course configuration, we're going to race on the traditional Brickyard track once again for the first time since the 2020 season. There's been talk behind the scenes and conversation about if they're going to continue running the road course in 2023 or if they're going to go to the oval. I think that basically they're going to go to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway regular Brickyard track that they've had for 2023. I think they're going to want to see how the next-gen cars race. If the next-gen cars race really, really well in Indianapolis, because even in the past-gen cars, it hasn't raced really, really great, I think they have a great future at it. So I think in 2023, they're going to change Indianapolis back to the Brickyard. If it does really well, they may race on the Brickyard in 2024. If not, they'll just go back to the road course configuration or have an alternate where they do the road course 1 year and the oval 1 year. That might be what they end up doing going forward. Right after Indianapolis Motor Speedway on July 30th, we'll be racing on August 6th at Michigan Speedway for the only time of the season. Michigan is a track that has not produced the best racing since repave and reconfigure, well, the repave in 2012. And they really are a track that really hopefully with the next-gen car can perform a little bit better than they have. Now, Michigan, of course, like I said, is a pretty decent track overall as, well, not a great track, but it does have a good crowd. There was a really good crowd at Michigan the past year. There's not usually a track when it comes, they don't have really major issues when it comes to rain. So I think Michigan, of course, will get their only date back on August 6th right after Indianapolis. Right after Michigan, I mentioned this about Richmond. Richmond is going to lose a date on August 13th. We're going to be exploring up into another country. We're going to be moving up to Canada for the Cup Series race at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. Now, the Cup Series has never raced here, but NASCAR has raced here. However, it has been 10 years, or it will be 11 years of the Cup Series races here. It'll be 11 years since NASCAR has last raced here. And every single NASCAR Xfinity Series race that has happened here from 2007 to 2012 have absolutely been barn burners and absolutely been bangers. Some of the best Xfinity Series races of all time have come at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal. So I think this is a race that needs to happen, and I think it needs to be the race that takes over Richmond. Yes, I know a lot of people are not big fans of road courses, but trust me, this is a track that absolutely needs to come on the schedule, and I think it'll be good to be more exploring up in the Canadian area once again in 2023, and I think those restrictions are going to be gone. Right after Circuit Gilles Villeneuve on August 20th, we're going to be going out and racing at Watkins Glen for the second to last race in the regular season. Watkins Glen has always put on good racing, and also the races tend to be very, very short. Last year's race was one of the fastest NASCAR Cup Series races ever. It was only like 2 hours and 20 minutes. It was a very fast-paced race, and NASCAR got their cautions very, very quickly. That was due in part to the National GP for IndyCar. I think that we're going to see a really strong race at Watkins Glen in 2023 as well, and I think we'll continue racing at Watkins Glen in 2023. And then finally in the regular season on August 26th, we're going to race at Daytona for the cutoff race. Daytona cutoff race has been really, really good. I know there was a lot of skepticism, including myself, when they moved this race in 2020. But I think that both races have done a really, really good job. And I think this being a cutoff race absolutely makes a ton of sense. And there's a lot of attrition and adrenaline that pumps in your bones when you come to Daytona. So I think that it'll once again be the cutoff race in 2023. And I think we'll see really great racing from that. And now we jump into the playoffs, and we'll start off with the round of 16. On September 3rd, we're going to have the Southern 500, but instead of being on USA Network, it's going to be on NBC. I have no understanding why they have this race on USA. This race, absolutely, there's no excuse for it. It should be on NBC. I do not understand why one of the biggest crown jewel events cannot be on NBC. It's absolutely ridiculous. Plus, as I said, it's like a crown jewel. This Southern 500 needs to be on NBC, but it will be the first race of the playoffs. Then after Southern 500 on September 10th, we'll be racing at Kansas Speedway. Now, I don't see IndyCar having problems where basically IndyCar and NASCAR coincide against each other, which they basically would start at the same time. I don't really understand that. But Kansas will take place on September 10th. Again, I think this could be one of the last few times we see Kansas get 2 dates on the schedule. But I think Kansas, once again, will take place on September 10th as the second race in the round of 16. And then on September 16th for the cutoff race in a round of 16, we've got the Bristol Night Race. Bristol Night Race is one of my favorite races of the year. In fact, it's my favorite race of the 2021 season. And I think in 2022, it will put on as good of a show. I think Bristol will be the cutoff race for the round of 16. Now we get into the round of 12. On September 24th, we'll be racing at Texas Motor Speedway. Texas Motor Speedway, in my opinion, is not overall the best of races, and as you probably noted, I basically put Texas Motor Speedway only as 1 day. The track does not deserve 2 days. It will only get 1 day, in my opinion, in the 2023 season due to racing not overall being the greatest. Then on October 1st, the second race at a round of 12, we've got the Talladega Cup race. This race being, of course, the middle race of the year. This racing is absolutely amazing, absolutely great, and you always see a lot of chaos and a lot of crazy, and also potential of rain delays and red flags while helping out drivers get their victories. Talladega, like I said, is a great racetrack. This will be the second race of the round of 12. And then finally, for the round of 12 in the cutoff race on October 8th, we will have the Charlotte Roval. Now, there's some people basically saying we should get rid of the Charlotte Roval. I basically disagree. I know tennis has not been great at the Charlotte Roval. That's one thing that definitely needs to be addressed if this event is going to continue long term. But I think the event will continue in 2023. People seem to love it on TV. It gets really good at ratings. I think the Charlotte Roval will continue to have the race as the cutoff race in the round of 12. And now we get into the round of 8. Starting on October 15th, it will take place once again in Las Vegas on the Sunday afternoon. Like I said, Vegas has turned out to put some good racing, but also not overall the best racing. I would not overall be surprised with the NFL season going on with the Las Vegas Raiders being a thing if attendance isn't the greatest, unless NASCAR can go out there and promote the event. I like Las Vegas as a track, not going to lie, but they need to make sure that they promote the hell out of the Las Vegas Cup date. And then right after Las Vegas, we're going to see a change to the schedule. Instead of Phoenix being the season finale, we're going to see a swap between Homestead and Phoenix is going to become the second race of the round of 8. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me, but I think Phoenix personally should not be the season finale for the NASCAR Cup Series. Don't get me wrong, it's produced good racing from time to time, but I personally think Phoenix needs to be the second to last race before the season. Basically needs to be the second to last race of the round of 8. And again, it can produce good racing, but it's not a track that is worthy of having the season finale. And then finally on October 29th is going to be cutoff race to the round of 8. And of course, it's going to take place at Martinsville for the second to last race. Both races so far as cutoff races for the round of 8 have been barn burners and bangers and races that we're going to remember for years to come. So Martinsville absolutely needs to be the second to last race of the season. I've generally really enjoyed it, and it needs to be, again, you have the crown jewel event. I think it needs to be considered a crown jewel event. The race is absolutely fine. I know some people will disagree, but I think we're, of course, going to have tire problems maybe, but the racing absolutely been killer, and Martinsville will be the second to last race on my schedule. And then finally, on November 5th, like I mentioned, the season finale for me in 2023, we go back to Homestead Miami Speedway for the first time since 2019. Like I mentioned with Phoenix, Phoenix is not a track that's worthy of having a season finale, besides the fact that basically they have a really good facility. Homestead Miami Speedway has put on some of the best racing that you could ever watch. The racing in 2021 at Homestead was one of the best races with the 550 package. We complained about the 550 package so much last year, but the racing was absolutely incredible to watch in it. You had guys going back and forth, it had great racing throughout the field, and it was a very enjoyable race. Yes, of course, the championship contenders were able to pull away and stuff, but that is naturally going to happen. That being said, though, Homestead absolutely needs to be the season finale on the schedule, and for me, that is the season finale on the schedule. So, that's my 2023 NASCAR schedule predictions. So, what changed on the schedule? Well, Phoenix lost one of their dates, and Sonoma moved up to the early portion of the season into the spring. The All-Star race moves to Bowman Gray Stadium. I think it makes sense for Bowman Gray Stadium to have the All-Star race. Then, of course, you have Bristol Dirt and Martinsville swapping just because of Easter. I think it makes a lot of sense. And then you have 3 straight short track races like normal. Then, of course, you have Portland Raceway basically taking the where Sonoma initially was. Portland, they've wanted to go up to the Northwest area for a very long time, so that makes a lot of sense for Portland to be there. Then on July 9th for Chicago Street Course, that's basically going to take over for Atlanta Motor Speedway's second date. I think Chicago definitely deserves an extra opportunity to get a race. They will have a date right there. Then Indianapolis Motor Speedway on July 30th, that is going to be converted back to the Brickyard, so that's another change that I think will happen. Then, of course, you have Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, which is taking over the date of Richmond, the second day for Richmond. And then finally, of course, Phoenix swapping with Homestead Miami Speedway. So if you notice, there aren't as many changes on the schedule, but there's going to be a couple of major significant changes that are going to happen. Also, a lot more races are going to be on the main networks of Fox and NBC. So, anyway, that's today's NASCAR special video. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, notifications to be notified when a video does go live on my channel. If Follow me Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support me on Patreon as well. Let's get you below over that and comment your thoughts on today's video. What are your early 2023 NASCAR schedule predictions? Let me know below in the comments below. Tomorrow on my channel, we're going to have a NASCAR news video, and then the rest of the week, I'll kind of figure out what's going to come out. But you'll probably have a couple news videos on the channel, and then, of course, you have predictions for Atlanta Motor Speedway this week. So anyway, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's video, and I'll see you guys next time for some great, awesome NASCAR and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.